little bit of history of the Missouri. The Missouri is an Iowa-class battleship. There were 4 of them built, the Missouri and the Iowa, obviously, but also the Wisconsin and the New Jersey. The construction on the Missouri began in January of 1941 at the Naval Shipyard in Brooklyn, New York. It took 3 years to build the ship. So in January of 1944, she was ready to be launched. Typically, when you launch a Navy ship, somebody breaks a champagne bottle over the bow just for good luck. And in the case of the Missouri, it was a young lady by the name of Mary Margaret Truman, Harry S. Truman's 19-year-old daughter. Truman at that point was still a senator from Missouri. So the ship was launched, went into a 6-month shakedown cruise, make sure everything on the ship worked. And in June of 1944, she was formally commissioned and immediately sent to the Western Pacific, where she saw action at Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and was also involved in the bombardment of mainland Japan at the end of the war. It was also at the end of the war that the Japanese surrendered on board this ship, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in our next stop. So, 1945, and the end of the war, many ships were decommissioned. Not so the Missouri. Now Truman is president. This is his favorite ship, obviously. And so the Missouri stayed in service into the 1950s and actually saw duty in Korea. And between our 3 16-inch gun turrets, fired over 7,000 rounds in support of those operations there. But finally, by 1955, she was decommissioned, sent to the mothball fleet in Bremerton, Washington, and the ship sat there for 29 years. Well, in 1984, President Reagan mandated that the United States have a 600-ship Navy, and one of the more economical ways to do that was to bring some of these ships out of mothballs. So the Missouri was brought out, but now at this point she had to be modernized. During Korea and World War II, she had well over 100 20mm and 40mm anti-aircraft guns on board. They were effective during those eras, but now in the eras of jet aircraft and missiles and that type of thing, no longer effective. So those weapons were taken off. They added 16 Harpoon missiles, which were ship-to-ship missiles, and 32 Tomahawk missiles, which were ship-to-shore missiles. So in 1986, she was recommissioned, put back into service, and by 1991, she was in the Middle East, involved in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And in those operations, first of all, she fired the first 28 Tomahawk missiles into Kuwait, and also between our 3 gun turrets, fired over 700 rounds in support of the land-based troops there. Also later in 1991, she came here to Pearl Harbor and was part of the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Of course, it was just a couple of weeks ago we commemorated the 75th year since that attack. Finally, by 1992, the age of the battleship had really passed. At that point, the Missouri was the last active battleship anywhere in the world. She was decommissioned, sent back to the mothball fleet at Bremerton, and sat there for another 9 years while different organizations wrestled for control of the ship. Guess who won? Us here at Pearl Harbor. So in 1998, she was towed back here and cleaned up. And in January of 1999, we started doing tours like you're on this morning, and we've been doing these tours continuously ever since. Here's 75 years, as fast as I could get through it. Any questions about any of that? Okay.